DC has been going through some changes. It's going through puberty. It's scared. It doesn't really know what's happening, but things are developing and changing, and it doesn't know if it likes it yet. And that's also how the fans are feeling too. So we had some major developments come out of DC over the past couple days, and even all the way up into a couple hours ago. So all of this kind of started back last week when Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, the director of Wonder Woman 2, and not looking like it's going to be the director of Wonder Woman 3, because she presented a pitch, or a treatment, I should say, of her story for Wonder Woman 3, and James Gunn and Peter Safran looked at it and said, no, Patty, we ain't doing this. This comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. And they say, sources say that Jenkins recently submitted her treatment co-written with Jeff Johns, and that Gunn and Safran, as well as Warner Brothers Pictures co-chairs and co-CEOs Michael D. Luca and Pamela Abbey, broke the news to the filmmaker, telling her the project as it stood did not fit in with the new but still unfolding plans. Jenkins directed and co-wrote the previous two movies starring Gal Gadot that were released in 2017 and 2020. No decision has been made about next steps. Deadline also followed up this story, saying that one source close to the situation told Deadline that Jenkins could very well hand in another take on the superhero, but it's not evident that that will happen. There were loose talks out there that talks broke down with Henry Cavill to reprise a Superman role. We're going to talk about that later in just a minute, despite his Instagram announcement to return before Safran and Gunn took the top job. But there's no script or director or green light for that next Man of Steel movie. There are staffers at Warner Brothers who remain in the dark as to what Gunn and Safran's grand design is, but they're focusing squarely on story and how the movies will interconnect with the TV series. Going back to the Hollywood Reporter, they also had this to say in their article. The rest of the DC slate remains in flux, or at least is being kept deep in the pocket of Gunn's own utility belt. But there are several rumors and possible scenarios to consider ahead of next week's meeting, which just happened, it appears today. The first, which builds on the shuttering of Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3, is the closing curtain of the Snyderverse, and the heroes cast by the filmmaker Zack Snyder for his Justice League. This one sees the shutting down of Man of Steel 2 with a returning Henry Cavill and having no more Aquaman fronted by Jason Momoa. The characters are set to cameo in The Flash, the highly anticipated time travel adventure movie that is due to release June 16th. Cavill shot his part of the cameo in September, but sources say there is debate inside the studio as to whether or not keep the cameo, and if its inclusion promises something that the studio would have no plans on delivering on. So that came last week, and it kind of just blew up the internet with what is going on with the DC universe. And then going on even further in this article, they talked about how Black Adam's fate may not be very bright. Also unlikely is a sequel to Black Adam, despite the hype surrounding the movie. Hype, really? That's loose. That's loose. Despite the hype surrounding the movie of launching a new corner of DC, a lot of it led by star Dwayne Johnson. The movie has only grossed about $385 million worldwide, and insiders at the studio say the movie, which cost more than $190 million to produce, two sources peg it actually could have costed $230 million, not including marketing, will be lucky to break even considering ancillary revenue. Even if the movie does eke out a minimal profit, any follow-ups inherit rising costs dim the prospect of a sequel. So all of this started coming out, and people were kind of wondering what is going on. The Black Adam, Dwayne Johnson, he's been pretty adamant that he is going to fight Superman. He's been adamant he's going to get a sequel. Well, James Gunn then went on Twitter, as James Gunn loves to do nowadays. He's kind of the most accessed movie executive in movie history, as far as I'm concerned. And he went on to Twitter, and he went on to say, so, as far as the story from yesterday in the Hollywood Reporter, some of it is true, some of it is half true, some of it is not true, and some of it we haven't decided yet whether or not it's true or not. So, everything seemed up in the air, even from even from James Gunn himself, and even Patty Jenkins got online and tried to clear the air with her role in all this by putting out a statement that said, I originally left Rogue Squadron after a long and productive development process when it became clear it couldn't happen soon enough, and I did not want to delay Wonder Woman 3 any further. When I did, Lucasfilm asked me to consider coming back to Rogue Squadron after Wonder Woman 3, which I was honored to do, so I agreed. They made a new deal with me. In fact, I'm still on it, and that project has been in active development ever since. I don't know if it will happen or not. We never do until the development process is complete, but I look forward to its potential ahead. When there started being backlash about Wonder Woman 3 not happening, the attractive clickbait false story that it was me that killed it or walked away started to spread. This is simply not true. I never walked away. I was open to considering anything asked of me. It was my understanding that there was nothing I could do to move anything forward at this time. DC is obviously buried in changes they are having to make up, so I understand these decisions are difficult right now. And that came straight from Patty Jenkins. So, a lot of people, including myself, started to really speculate what this meant for the DC universe going forward. And what I came to the conclusion to, and what I come to the conclusion to even harder now after tonight, I think they are ramping up to completely reboot this DC universe. I think everyone that's been involved in the DCEU up until this point, I think they are done. I think in some way, shape, or form, they're going to find a way to take some of these actors, such as Jason Momoa, who in the article they said he potentially won't be doing Aquaman after the second film, but there's been a lot of talk about him potentially moving on to play Lobo. I think there's some evidence here that suggests that we could see current DCEU characters be brought into a brand new DC universe that James Gunn and Peter Safran are developing and giving them new roles in this universe. And that only got a lot more evident tonight, guys, when just a couple of hours ago, just a few hours ago, guys, James Gunn got on Twitter and blew everybody's mind wide open. Here's what James Gunn had to say. Peter and I have a DC slate ready to go, which we couldn't be more over the moon about. We'll be able to share some exciting information about our first projects at the beginning of the new year. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages, our story will be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. But we just had a great meeting with Henry, and we're big fans, and we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future. So this got some people to, rightfully so, start to question James Gunn on what he meant, and we got this person, Raiden the Monbee, asking, being part of the slate, I assume it's a movie. James Gunn responds, yes, of course it's going to be a movie. Del Alam Boom, are you writing and directing? James Gunn says, I am writing and have been for a while. We just don't know who is directing yet. So that story that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we were following the development of Henry Cavill's return to Superman, which is so sad to look back on now, when they said that they were reaching out and looking for writers, that must have been bull crap, because James Gunn has been writing this, and apparently he's been writing this for a while, keeping it tight-lipped. And Greg Phillips said, please tell me this isn't an origin movie, to which James Gunn said, no way. And this is probably the most fascinating thing that I've seen. Jeff tweeted, could Ben Affleck direct? And James Gunn said, I met with Ben yesterday precisely because he wants to direct, and we want him to direct. We just have to find the right project. So this right here is already suggesting to me that they are looking for ways to take people that have been a part of this DCEU up until this point and find them new roles in this new universe that I think James Gunn and Peter Safran are completely rebooting. I think that James Gunn and Peter Safran had come in. They haven't come in to fix the pipes. They haven't come in to put new wallpaper on the wall. They have come to flip the house. This is going to be a demolishing project that they are going to build new ground from the ground up. And we even got a response tonight from Henry Cavill, basically confirming that everything that James Gunn has said on Twitter is true. This is what Henry Cavill had to say. I have just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October, which I got to stop there for just 1 second and say, I feel so bad for Henry Cavill at this point because this kind of looks like he got egg in his face, but it's not his fault. He was given the green light. He was talking about how his he was talking about how his Superman was going to be more positive, how he was going to be joyful. They obviously had plans laid out for the Superman movie for what his Superman was going to develop into. They obviously were far along in that process, and then James Gunn, Peter Safran got hired, and they are flipping the house, and they got to throw everything out, including the kitchen sink that is Henry Cavill. But I feel so bad for this guy, the way that this has all gone down. So he says, I will not be turning to Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe. That's an interesting part right there. I wish them and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, and then we must remember Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and the examples he sets for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape has passed, but what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards. And that comes to us from Henry Cavill himself. So this is pretty crazy, but also it's a little bit not unexpected, I guess I could say, in a way, because when you look back at what David Zaslav, who is now the leader of Warner Brothers, when he put together DC Studios, when he hired James Gunn and Peter Safran to come in and lead this, he said he has not been hiding it. He wants a 10-year plan. He wants the DC Universe's version of Infinity War and Endgame. They want to build towards something, and he wants a Kevin Feige. He's looking at Marvel's success, and he wants what Marvel's success has. And part of Marvel's success is that from the get-go, their universe was kind of universally beloved. I recently just watched Iron Man with my wife a couple days ago again, and that movie is still so much fun to return to. It still holds up so well, and you can see why the MCU really flourished and was able to get off the ground with Iron Man. It's just a universally pleasing movie with a great character and a great character arc. Obviously, it's all subjective, and not everyone loves Iron Man, but universally, for the most part, it was generally loved. When you look at the DCEU from their starting point, from the movies that started this universe, they were divisive. They were not universally loved. Man of Steel, even though I think it's a good movie, a lot of people like it, a lot of people hate it. Right out of the gate, they got off on the wrong foot with a lot of fans. You go on to Batman v Superman next. That's another one that was very divisive. It did not do well. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people liked it. But it was another one that split the fan base. Then you got into Suicide Squad, which I think was just universally hated. I don't know if anyone liked Suicide Squad. Then you got what they got closest to with the universal love, which was Wonder Woman. Then you got Justice League, the theatrical cut. That didn't do well. People revolted against that one pretty hardcore. Then you had Aquaman. That one did pretty well. So it's been a very up and down road and ride for the DCEU thus far. But Marvel never had that much of an up and down ride, especially with its first few movies out. And I think that's what David Zaslav wants James Gunn and Peter Safran to also accomplish. He wants a universe that when you start it, you're hooked. You can get a bunch of audience members to love it from the get-go, and then they will continue to watch it for years to come. And the DCEU has not been doing that thus far. Even with the wins that they've had a lot of losses, and not everyone has loved this universe the way that I think Warner Brothers wants them to. So I think at this point, when you got Henry Cavill, he's out. When you got Patty Jenkins given a treatment for Wonder Woman 3, and Peter and James saying, yeah, this doesn't really fit with us anymore, I almost think it's safe to say that Gal Gadot is out. I'm starting to believe the article more and more that after Aquaman 2, they are going to stop developing this DC universe, and they're going to axe all the heroes and everyone that was cast in this DCEU and try to find ways to bring them into the new universe and new roles, directing roles, acting roles. I think the biggest question is, how mad is The Rock right now? And I think this does not look good for The Rock, to be honest with you, because The Rock has kind of been acting, at least, like he has been leading the charge with the return of Superman. He's been out there saying, I talked to the executive, I told them we needed him back, I did this, we did this for years, we figured this out, we got Henry back, I'm gonna fight Henry Cavill, we were building up to Black Adam versus Superman. Oh man, and then the movie didn't do too well with the money. There's reports out there that I don't really want to get into, but allegedly, it looks like The Rock might have fibbed some financial numbers to make Black Adam look like it did better than it actually did. So I don't know if The Rock's safe. I could see Black Adam not getting a sequel. I could see Black Adam getting axed. That Black Adam versus Superman movie, I don't think that's happening anymore at all, especially with the removal of Henry Cavill. I think we're about to see this entire DCEU get ripped up from the roots, completely demolished, completely broken down, and they are building something new. This is going to be a completely new universe. After this next slate of DC movies that's coming out next year, I think this universe is done. But what do you guys think of all this? Because this is some crazy developments, and I don't think this is going to be the end. We are going to keep hearing about these developments. So I want to hear from all you guys. Comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions on this, guys. And without further ado, let's take a look at what you guys are saying about all this.